Get ready to rock radio. Music you want to hear.
We're saying hello now to someone we admire here at Get Ready to Rock. Features regularly in our singer-songwriter sequence, Monday to Friday, 1400 hours. And we say hello to Joan Armatrading.
Hi.
Hello, Joan. And I gather you're hot-footing it from a rehearsal for the forthcoming tour.
Yes, I'm rehearsing it in Putney, and you might hear the train going across every now and again, because we rehearse in a great rehearsal hall, but it's right above the train line, and the train rumbles across, on schedule. Sometimes two at a time, very quick succession, so get ready for that.
So if there are some reverberations at your end, it's the train then? Yeah. So are things going well then? Because you're very busy at the moment. You're releasing a brand new album called Starlight, which we'll come on and talk about. In fact, we open with the track Back on Track, talking about trains, although, of course, the song's nothing to do with that. And, of course, you've got loads of festival dates during the summer.
Yes. Yeah, I've done festival dates before, but I've never done so many in kind of one string. It's just something I really fancy doing, and so this is the year that it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm doing like Crop Ready and Hop Farm and the Isle of Wight and Cambridge and the Acoustic Festival. Lots of different festivals, and then I'm also doing some festivals in Europe as well. So the festivals kind of go from May through to July, August, I think, and then from September to December will be the concert hall dates. So the best thing I can say to people is go to my website, www.joanarmatrading.com, and have a look at the tour dates there, because there's just too many for me to even begin to start to tell you where I'm going.
That's right. So it's extensive. You're going to be busy now for the rest of the year, basically, aren't you?
That's right.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I mean, the rehearsals are going really, really well. We're obviously going to do new and old songs. So there's all the new songs, not all the new songs, but new songs from the new CD, and then stuff from Into the Blues. And I don't know if I do anything from This Charming Life. I think I do. So Into the Blues, This Charming Life, and going back, of course, Love and Affection and different songs like that. So it's a good mixture, and the tour will kind of have a jazzy flavour to it as well, to go with, because I kind of do that with Into the Blues. That was a blues flavoured album, so the tour had a kind of blues flavour to it, and then The Charming Life was a rock flavoured album, so the tour had a rock flavour to it, and this one is a jazz flavour thing. So
something for everyone, really.
Yeah.
But do you find, Joan, that you approach the festival gigs slightly differently to the theatre tours, because it's a different ambience, isn't it? Does that dictate the set list?
It's kind of, yes, in that because it's a festival, you can't have too much kind of light and shade, if you like. Of course, you have to have light and shade still, even for the festival. The set for the concert tours is 2 hours, and the set for the festivals is an hour. So that tells you've got to get rid of an hour's worth of songs to be able to play the festival. So that dictates, what you've got to try and get rid of, or what you're not going to be able to play because you just don't have the time. And you need energy as well, I think. So yes, it affects it in that way, in that you don't have the same amount of time.
Now, can we say, Joan, congratulations on a wonderful new album? And the most obvious thing to me, although you may correct me now, is that you've done everything yourself. You've produced it, you've played on it, very much self-sufficient production, really. Is this the first time you've had this approach for an album?
No, this is the fourth album I've done this with. So I did the album in 2003. I did that, and I played everything apart from the drums. In 2007, so 2003 was what's that called? Lovers Speak. That was called. This wasn't an acoustic album, but it had an acoustic flavour to it. That was 2003. Then 2007, I did Into the Blues, which is blues flavoured. Played everything apart from drums. 2010, This Charming Life, rock flavoured, played everything apart from drums. And this one, 2012, called Starlight. This time I programmed the drums instead of working with a drummer, getting a drummer in. Because even when I got the drummer in, I would kind of program the drums myself, but I thought I would get the drummer in to kind of replace what I'd done. But this time, I just thought I'd keep what I did. So so it's basically just me.
Very good. So this has been a trend then, effectively, for the last decade. Was that a conscious decision you made all those years ago to just do your own thing, really, separately like that?
Well, my first record was 1972. So from 1972 until 2003, I did the albums with musicians. I would always still write and arrange. So a lot of the parts you'll hear in is the parts that I've written anyway, even though the musicians are playing. But I made the albums with the musicians. I always played my demos myself. Played everything on my demos myself, and I thought it'd be really good one day to do that on record. And so 2003, I thought, well, this is the time that I'm going to do it. And I did it, and it was, successful. It sounded good. It didn't sound like it was one person trying to say everything. And so then I decided that I would just carry on and do the next three. And in 2003, I decided I would do like a trilogy, a blues, a rock, and a jazz thing. So I'd set myself that kind of goal. So that's what I was doing as well. I really enjoy it, and look, I can do it, so it's fine to do.
And Starlight brings that story up to date, really, as far as the trilogy goes. But do you find your own biggest critic, really, Joan, or is this something that comes with experience and the confidence to be able to do that? Because it sets a very high standard for yourself to have to do all these different duties of production and multitasking, really, isn't it?
Even when I was working with producers, I was always very, very involved. It was never a producer saying, this is how the song goes. It was always me saying, this is how the song goes. So because I'm a writer, for me, writing is writing and arranging. It's not just kind of having an idea and hoping everybody else will make it go the way it's supposed to go. I've always, from when I first started to write, I've always thought in terms of what the instruments should be doing. So even right on my very first album, I knew what I wanted on the album, and I knew what I wanted to sound like and people to play. I was really seriously lucky with Gus Dudgeon, who was my first producer. They recognized that I had a very strong idea, and so he made sure that what I wanted happened. And that was a great start for me to know that it wasn't a case of having to fight people to get what I wanted. He was very generously made sure that what I wanted happened, and I could talk to the musicians and get my point across. And because I could also play, I could, if there was a part that I wanted, I could just play it to them and whatever. And so Gus was invaluable for me. He was the most wonderful person.
Because, of course, you can learn so much from these people as well, can't you? And that has a direct influence in the future for you.
It does. You can also learn from people who are not good.
Yeah.
Which actually, the first two people I worked with, I think, gave me the most valuable lessons of my career. Gus in how to do everything exactly right, and the other in how to do things not right. And so having those two really, really, I think really helped me and shaped because when you find out what not to do and how not to put people at ease and how not to be communicative and how not to kind of respect other people's space and everything, when you have that reference, it allows you to be able to do the right thing. So as I say, because I had Gus who could do everything right, when I saw something being done completely opposite,
yes,
I had this frame of reference to go back to say, okay, well that's fine, you can do that, but I know that this is the right way.
Yes. Now, would I be right in thinking that looking at your career, certainly in the last 20 years, I mean, we played in with one of the new tracks off Starlight, which is Back on Track. It seems to me that since the mid to late 1990s, your career really has got back on track, in the sense that you're doing your own thing, you're very satisfied with what you're doing musically, and with the albums you've made since 2003, things have got progressively better, really, in some ways. Would you agree with that, Joan?
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah. I've no idea how to tell you why that is. I know that I've always kind of gone my own way and written my own music and done things myself. But I think part of things being the way they are these days is just being more relaxed. That's what I think. It's just about being more relaxed and just, I mean, I've always thought primarily of the music, but it's kind of almost been even more immersed in just the music and not really too concerned about much else. The music is king, and that's the thing. And I've always been very lucky in terms of record companies. They've always left me alone. they don't say to me, Joan, we need a record or anything. I'm usually the one that says, okay, I'm going to do a record and I'll give it to you at this point. So I've never had that kind of pressure. Maybe I had it, but I just didn't notice it. I certainly didn't notice it. I'm older. I was 22, I think, when my first record came out, and I'm 61 now. So it's 40 years.
What was happening, Joan, in the 1990s, really? You had the great success in the 70s and the 80s, and then things went off a bit in the 90s.
As with everybody, there's a dynamic. It doesn't matter whether you're Joan Armatrading or Frank Sinatra or Elton John or the Beatles. It kind of doesn't really matter. There will be peaks and troughs. That's just how it goes. Okay, some of the people I've mentioned obviously have had massive success in the way that I haven't had massive success. But it hasn't altered the fact that even with their massive success, there's been great dips. And that's just how it goes. There's nobody, whether you're talking about Madonna or Lady Gaga or Elvis, no matter who you're talking about, there will be peaks and troughs. Michael Jackson, there's always peaks and troughs, because it's almost like in the trough, it's somebody else's turn to have success. Because to me, it seems as if it's about turns. There's people having success and somebody else kind of having a bit of a rest, and then somebody else has a success and then that other person has a rest,
Did that affect you at all in that decade, the 90s, then? If you like calling it a bit of a dip, a natural dip, nevertheless.
No. If it had affected me, then I wouldn't be here now. Because when something affects you, and I'm presuming when you say affects you, you mean adversely. If it had affected me, then obviously I wouldn't be still writing. I never stopped writing. So it's not, as I said, it's just something that happens. It's a natural thing. You haven't got to panic and kind of go and slash your wrists or anything. It's just what happens. That's natural.
Yeah, that's life sort of thing, isn't it?
Right, that's it.
Well, one aspect of your recent work, moving the story a little bit more up to date, and it's a very appealing one to me, Joan, actually, is your seemingly greater use of the electric guitar rather than the acoustic. And I know that fitted well with the rock album, and there's still plenty of it on the latest album. Has that been a conscious decision for you in more recent years?
Well, it's so funny. If you listen, I don't think I've played an electric guitar on my very first album, but from my second album onwards, I'm playing electric guitar. It's just that people don't notice. I remember the record company did a focus group on one of my CDs, and they played a solo, and the because I'm playing all the guitars on it. And they asked them who was playing, and they mentioned everybody. They mentioned Clapton, Mark Knopfler, Brian May. They mentioned everybody. Not one person said Joan, because people don't really notice. Well, they notice more now, but didn't notice that I was playing the electric guitar. I think people were quite sentimental about the acoustic, and because of Love and Affection, they tend to associate me with the 12-string Ovations, which is fine, not a problem. But I have been playing electric guitar since my second album. If you listen to the second album, I'm playing electric guitar on there, on different albums throughout the years. From 2003, I became the only person playing everything. It becomes much more noticeable.
This is radio for the internet age. Get ready to rock radio.
Now, whilst listeners are going to be attracted to those key 1970s albums, can you also point them in the direction, Joan, of another album of yours which you're particularly proud of, and maybe a specific track we can play?
Actually, I'll tell you what you could play. You could play the song that I said to you. They asked everybody who it was, and it's on an album called What's Inside. I think that was like 95 or something.
Yeah.
And the song is called Lost for Love.
And is that a good album for listeners to explore if they want to get a bit more of Joan Armatrading, aside from the key albums that they might know about?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course I'm going to say yes, but it's quite difficult to tell people what it is they should like. I mean, what they need to do is go and kind of get a snippet of different things, because these days it's a great thing. You can go onto iTunes or Amazon and get a snippet of all these different albums, and from that you get a flavour, and you start to think, well, yes, I like that, or I don't like that. And so that's probably what I'd say is, go to iTunes or Amazon and call up my name and look at all the different albums. But try not to go for the compilation albums. Try to go for a particular album, like Into the Blues or This Charming Life, or of course I'm going to say Starlight.
Yeah.
Try and go for a solid album, and then you get this kind of flavour.
And is the one album prior to all these, one that you hold particularly close to your heart in terms of either the content, it doesn't matter when you recorded it really, but is the one album you think more people should hear, Joan?
Well, I suppose the album that got me noticed would come to the fore, which is an album called Joan Armatrading.
Yeah.
That has Love and Affection on it, and Love and Affection is what got me known all over the world. So it's an important album to me. It's a special album to me, and it's a really good album. I think it stands up today in the same way that Show Some Emotion, which followed that, stands up. Another album that I really like is the Shouting Stage.
Now, in respect of the recording then, going back to those early albums, now it seems you had a bit of a false start with the record label Cube back right at the start of the 70s really, and it wasn't until I think it was 1975 you released your second album.
Yeah.
This must have been a real hindrance for you at that time, because it was almost like being in limbo possibly as far as the recording went. I mean, what was happening at that time?
Well, in 72, I was signed to Cube, but I was also signed to A&M. I was signed to Cube here in England, but I was signed to A&M in America. It was a question of not being on Cube anymore. I had to not be on Cube anymore. So that took a while to sort out. So that was the interruption there between the first and the second album, was just kind of making that transition. But then I just remained on A&M. So it wasn't so much as being in limbo as just trying to sort something out.
Were you ever under any pressure to come up with more commerciality, therefore that would be, give you wider appeal, or were you very much left to your own devices, even by the record label?
I was left to my own devices. Maybe I'm lying, maybe I wasn't, but that's certainly how I felt. I never allowed any pressure to come to me, because I'm happy writing. That's what I do, write. I don't really need anybody to tell me to write. You know, I'm going to write. I don't really need you to tell me go and write a song. That's what I'm going to do. So you'll only have that pressure if you're not doing that, and that's what I'm always. That's what I'm doing.
That's how you work. Yeah, it's really interesting that, because some artists are obviously almost put in a straitjacket. Certainly in the 70s and maybe in the 80s as well, you know, the label stipulates they want a certain type of album, or there's pressure because of the major success of the previous album. I think what you're saying, Joan, is because you write in a naturally appealing commercial way, they left you alone, really.
Yes. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, me being the way I am. I haven't got a clue. I know that is the way I am. I don't know, because I'm very eclectic, and I don't know if that's good, or if people think, well, why don't you just stick to one thing? I've no idea. But I just feel that you have to be natural. You know, I write is the way I write. That's kind of it. And the way most people write is the way they write. Do you know what I mean? If you're Stockake in a Waterman, that's how you write. If you're Mark Knopfler, that's how you write. If you're Joan Armatrading, that's how you write. You know, people write the way they write. That's kind of it. If you're Andrew Lloyd Webber, you write the way you write. That's it. That's how most people have a way of going about things that is very natural and comfortable to them. And that's generally the thing that works. So that's what you kind of hone.
Yes. I suppose what I'm getting at, really, and you sort of answered the question, that, you know, sometimes with self-produced material, i.e. the most recent albums, you're allowed completely free reign. But it seems to me that doesn't actually apply in your case, because that's you're basically writing that way anyway, and that's well received by any record label. So what I'm saying, Joan, is that there isn't any pent-up frustration from Joan Armatrading that she wasn't allowed to do certain things at certain times.
I've never had that. I've always done what I need to do.
Done what you've done, sort of thing. Right. Yeah.
Get ready to rock.
Now let's bring the story right up to date with the new album called Starlight. When you made this album, Joan, did you have a concept from the start? I mean, it does seem to flow from the previous album, but are you receptive to, for example, you've got a very loyal fan base. Are you receptive to that sort of expectation? In other words, if you came up with a completely off-the-wall album, you know, you're conscious that might alienate some of that fan base.
I kind of write what I want to write. If I wanted to write a Norwegian folk singers album, whatever, then that's the album I'd write, not the album I want to write. What I want to write is what I've written. And as a writer, you cannot afford to think about the people who are going to hear what you've written. You can't afford to, because you will tell me you want this, and if you're married or you're with somebody, that person will say, no, but I want this. And then your next door neighbour will say, no, but wait a minute, really what you need to do, Joan, is this. And then you go down the street a few blocks, and you talk to somebody else, and they say, no, those are the three are wrong. What you need to do is this. And then you talk to somebody else, and they say, no, they're all wrong. It's this. So in the end, who are you going to follow? You haven't got a clue. So the best person to follow is yourself. I write for myself. And then once the song is written and it's out there, then yes, I want everybody to be involved and to commit to it and become emotionally attached to it and everything. But I can't write for everybody. I can't write thinking about the audience. It's just not going to work.
You've remained very truthful to your art form, I think, from the very earliest days. Can I just ask you briefly, Joan, how did you get involved in music anyway? I mean, I gather it was from a very early age, but what was influencing you when you started out?
I used to write like little poets, not even poems, limericks, and little funny stories and jokes and things like that. And then one day my mother bought a piano and put it in the front room. She bought it purely as a piece of furniture. She thought it looked great. She wanted it in the corner there by that wall. And literally, as soon as that piano arrived, I started writing. And that's where my writing started. It wasn't because of listening to records or hearing this or going to that or whatever. It literally was the piano arrived, that did it.
And as your music developed, could you say there were any major influences on you, say in the 60s, for instance?
No, not really, because once I started to write, I was kind of into what I was doing. However, having said that, music is everywhere. It's impossible not influenced by what you hear. But there's an indirect and a direct influence. So I was never, want to sit down and play along to records and things like that. I didn't do that. So I wasn't trying to be anybody else. Because once I discovered my writing, that's really what I was doing, was writing my songs. So I wasn't kind of listening to this and thinking, I want to write something like that, or I want to write, it wasn't that. I was just kind of into just what I was doing. But music, as I say, it's everywhere. It gets into you. There's no way that I'm going to be able to. There's no way I'm going to be able to write a blues song unless I've heard a blues song. I'm not going to be able to write jazz unless I've heard jazz. I'm not going to be able to write rock unless I've heard rock. I haven't invented genre. All of these genres were there, I kind of soaked them all up. So I'm not denying an influence, but what I'm denying, or not denying, but what I'm saying is I haven't kind of consciously sat down to say this is the thing that I want to try and be like.
Emulate sort of thing, I know. Yeah. No, that's... So on your day off, Joan, I mean, is there any particular...
When is that going to be?
Well, it won't be any time before 2014. What sort of music would you listen to? I think that's what I'm probably getting at. At the moment, for instance, I mean, is there anything on your iPod, if you've got one? Or...
I don't have music on my iPod.
No.
No, I have talking. I have comedians. I have, Tim Vine and Michael McIntyre. And I absolutely love the Killers. I thought Amy Winehouse was wonderful. Jeremy Cullum, I think, is really, really good. He's very versatile. He's quite eclectic. So I think of him kind of like me, very eclectic. There's lots of people that I really, really like, and I've heard and kind of know their music. I might not own it, but I heard it. So music is around, but I'm not kind of sitting down, or I'm not walking around with music in my head all the time, and I'm not playing. The band, they're constantly listening to music. I don't know how they do it. They're always listening to stuff. I think I can't listen to music all the time like that.
No.
I like to listen to Radio 4 or just have kind of a play or something going on in my head. Listen to audio tapes or something.
Probably a lot healthier, Joan, I would imagine, really.
I don't know.
Let's finish now with a track from that brand new album called Starlight. And we should say to listeners, although you may tag it as a jazz sort of album of the trilogy.
When you listen to the album, you definitely know what the albums are. You don't listen to Starlight and think, oh, that's a blues album. But when you listen to Into the Blues, you think, oh, that's blues. You do know what it is you're listening to. And
the main thing is it's highly accessible, as your albums are. And we should just also mention that you've got some great dates lined up, and not least over the summer you're appearing Cambridge Folk Festival. You mentioned Cropredy, Acoustic Festival Great Britain, and of course the Isle of Wight Festival, and then that precedes your marvellous tour starting in the autumn, so listeners should go and check your website. Thank you, Joan, for your time, and all the very best from us all here at Get Ready to Rock for the album and of course the tour.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.